Senate, Governor, Attorney General, Congress. The 2026 board is set, and the stakes have never been higher. Will the Texas First record hold? Or is it time for a new guard in Austin and D.C.? We go one-on-one with the candidates and fact-check the campaign trail in real time. Polls, players, and pure Texas politics. This is Battleground Texas.
Welcome in. I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas, and welcome to Battleground Texas. Let's get right to everything that is making headlines for us today. With 5 days out, it's still a low turnout when you look at it holistically, but there has been a surge when it comes to early voting for the March 3rd primary. In the state's largest counties, turnout is up more than 50% over last midterm cycle. While Republican numbers remain strong, a massive surge of Democrat ballots in North Texas and in Harris County have experts wondering if a shift could be brewing. Texas politicians are weighing in on the cartel violence in Mexico after a major player was killed Sunday. Governor Abbott is urging Texans to stay alert and abide by travel warnings. Ag Commissioner Sid Miller specifically warned agricultural workers and border residents to postpone travel that is not absolutely necessary. Now, I want to bring in my colleague, Rudy Koski in Austin, and our friend from Rice University, Mark Jones. Rudy, what is making headlines for you today?
Yes, Stephen, immigration enforcement and the lack of it continue to make political headlines that I've noticed. Coverage continues on calls from several top Texas Democrats who want a state house hearing into a fatal shooting which took place last year on South Padre Island. A man from San Antonio was killed after he ran down a federal officer who was helping local police with a major traffic accident. There are accusations of a cover-up regarding the involvement of federal agents in that shooting. Meanwhile, there was minimal coverage today of President Trump honoring families of loved ones killed by undocumented migrants, victims like Jocelyn O'Gary from Houston. Stephen?
Yeah, Mark, what is making headlines in your neck of the woods?
Well, I think we're seeing the violence in Mexico is certainly having a negative impact on tourism in the country and raising questions about the ability of the Mexican government to maintain control in the country. Elsewhere here in Houston, you're seeing down ballot candidates who are faced with a lot of people turning out to vote on the Democratic side in the Senate race, but who don't really know many of the candidates below that. They're scrambling to get their name out there as quickly as possible to try to reap as much of that early vote as they can.
All right. Now, another thing making headlines are all of these political ads that we have been seeing. In a recent ad from Jasmine Crockett, she has been targeting Tallarico on his financial donations. Where have they been coming from? Meanwhile, a new ad from Tallarico features one of his middle school students. And on the Republican side, Wesley Hunt, I believe, using some farm animals. Take a look.
James Tallarico says the right things, but he doesn't practice what he preaches. He says he'll take on billionaires, but a billionaire-funded super PAC is spending $5.4 million in dark money supporting him. He says he'll show up for Texas, but he missed over 900 votes, like rural health care, education, and school safety.
He wasn't that kind of teacher that demanded respect or anything of that sort. He more so earned it. The kind of teacher that would greet you walking into the classroom.
Growing up, I didn't know English. It wasn't until I got into 3rd grade where I started learning the language. And when I got to middle school, it got a little bit harder. But Mr. Tallarico was always helpful. He never judged.
I'm Wesley Hunt. This is who John Corder partnered with for gun control, amnesty, and allowing 50,000 Afghan migrants into this country. Vote like a Democrat, act like a Democrat. Must be a Democrat.
I mean, I guess you can say that's creative. It's creative, and it's 2026. Rudy, what are you making of all of these ads?
I think it's great. I want to see more. We've had so many years where it's been just so one-sided and targeted adding ad placement that's been going on, seeing this broad approach right now. If you're into politics, boy, you've got to be having a lot of fun right now. I am watching these ads, just seeing which one is more outlandish over the next. What are you seeing, Mark?
Yeah, well, clearly this is a great spring for sales at TV stations because we're seeing record TV ads on 3 candidates on the Republican side, 2 on the Democratic side. They're buying a lot of airtime. They're also buying a lot of digital. They're doing everything possible to reach this growing electorate, which, especially on the Democratic side, keeps expanding, meaning that the original targeted ads that they had, focusing on regular Democratic primary voters, aren't enough. And so TV ads are what they really need to reach those broader voters who they can't identify via their primary voting history, but who are clearly participating in large numbers in this Democratic primary election.
Yeah, Mark, when I got to talk to Senator Cornyn up here in North Texas last week, he was asked about how expensive these races are getting. And he said, well, if your news stations didn't charge so much for the commercials, we definitely are enjoying all of the commercials. Rudy, the time-old question in politics, though, with 30 seconds left, do you think the ads are really going to be what makes someone vote for a certain candidate?
You know, for the hardcore, the true believers, no. But I think that of all the elections that we've seen in the past maybe 10 years, the moderate, the independent, that's the wild card. We're seeing so many polls come up with so many undecided voters. That's the ads. That's who these ads, I think, are really going to start targeting, that independent, undecided. Stephen?
Well, I know some people who are going to look forward to next Tuesday because they know that the ads will decrease, other than, I mean, we're going to have quite a bit of runoffs. Okay, we talked about turnout. When we come back, hear from the head of the Texas Democratic Party. Welcome back. The first week of early voting is behind us, and Democrats have a lot to talk about because they are seeing a higher than normal turnout. This morning, I spoke to the head of the Texas Democratic Party about it. What do you make of the first 6 days of early voting?
Well, there's a huge enthusiasm gap. Right now, Democrats are ready. We are sick and tired of the way this government has been operating on a national level and on a state level, and we're ready to take it back for working class people. So what I see right now are a bunch of patriotic Americans lining up at the polls to enact their civic duty, and that's to throw the bums out who've been running this state and this country into the ground.
Do you think, while there is energy amongst Democrats, this is the first time in a while that there's been competitive primaries in multiple races. Do you think that's part of what's driving these numbers that Democrats are seeing in early voting?
I'm a firm believer that when we compete in every corner of this state, we will have better results. That's why we recruited a candidate in every state and federal office in Texas this year for the first time since 1974. Having more candidates on the ballot absolutely drives turnout. But I also have been saying this since Congresswoman Crockett got into this race against Representative Tallarico. Primaries, while they may be raucous, they are the sign of a healthy party.
Are you confident specifically at the top of the ticket that whoever is the party nominee for U.S. Senate, that their supporters will still support who the Democrat nominee is?
I know both of our candidates very well. I have for years. They are good people who understand and have a very strong North Star for what we're trying to do here and what we're trying to accomplish. So there might be wounds after the election. I have 100% confidence that they will both be at the table doing everything they can to make sure that the entire Democratic ticket is performing and winning elections. I'll remind you, this is not the dirtiest primary we have seen in Texas. I would argue that the Republican primary on the other side right now is much nastier. Also, think back to primaries like the 1990 primary between Maddox and Richards. It really doesn't get any nastier than that one, but we ended up winning that election.
Now, two things are true. One thing, I do believe that the Republican primary is a bit nastier, but we'll have to see about the whoever is the hurt Democrat. Will they really circle around and support the person who's the nominee? Okay, Rudy Koski, up here in Dallas County, the first 6 days of early voting, 77,000 Democrats early voted, 24,000 Republicans. In Tarrant County, which is an important county, 55,000 Democrats early voted already, 39,000 already on the Republican side. Your thoughts?
My first thoughts is, what's with the hat?
I asked him about it. We can talk about it. I asked him about it.
At a time that the last thing the Democrats need to do is remind people about what happened 5 years ago. And abolishing ICE, wearing a hat like that, is saying open borders and let's do it all over again, folks. I just don't understand that kind of mindset. But with your question, competition is always good. A lot of the policy pushed out of the Capitol Dome for the last 10 years, example of a lack of competition, some will argue. Single party rules didn't work for the Russians, not exactly a good look for Texas, right? So competition is good. It's also important to note that early voting in a primary certainly is not early voting in a general election. And here in the Austin area, the polling locations that I went by today, not very busy. Regardless, red flags are flying across the state for Republicans. Stephen?
All right, and Rudy, just to be clear, I did ask him about the hat. He said that's not an official stance of the Texas Democratic Party, but it is a stance of his. Right. He also said that, quote, and I'm going to read it, "I am an East Texan. We're fiercely independent. We don't believe that government should be able to shoot people in the head, et cetera, et cetera." So, yeah, I just want you to know journalistically I did ask him about that. Back on topic. Mark. These numbers, Harris County posted on social media saying that they are seeing record turnout on the Democrat side, same as Dallas County. Is this a trend? I mean, I know this is just a primary, but what are your thoughts?
Well, no, so what we're seeing is really increased turnout on the Democratic side. We're really double where we were, almost triple in some counties. On the Republican side, it's pretty much the usual suspects turning out to vote. You're not seeing much of an increase there whatsoever. It's simply the regular people who turn out in the Republican primary plus some population growth. The Crockett-Tallarico race is clearly driving Democratic turnout much more than any other race. Certainly a uncontested state house race in Abilene with a Democratic candidate isn't doing it. It's Crockett versus Tallarico. That's like having UT and A&M versus previous Democratic primaries were more like SMU, UNT.
Wow, a little shade to
That's a good analogy.
The people at SMU may take offense to that, having gone to the college football playoff 2 years ago, but really good analogy, Mark, and that's why we have you on. Okay, guys, there's a lot more to discuss, and we're going to talk about some much more stuff when we come back. All right, let us check out this weekend in social media. The Cornyn Senate camp posting several times about the senator's effort in border security. One saying, quote, under John Cornyn's leadership, taxes were cut, law enforcement was strengthened, and border security was funded. That's a record built on votes cast and laws passed. Rudy?
All right, in light of a new poll showing Democrat Jasmine Crockett topping Ken Paxton, Cornyn posted Paxton would be an albatross on the Republican ticket. So Paxton posted, quoting now, when you were desperate to stop, let me try that again. When you were desperate to stop President Trump, you used the exact same pathetic attack. You were wrong then, you are wrong now. You're about as terrible at predicting elections as you are defending gun rights, unquote. Stephen?
Ouch. And Congressman Wesley Hunt posted, Cornyn attacks me because he can't defend his failures, saying an ex on opposes border walls, opposed the wall, turned on Trump, blocked America first. I am a combat vet. I don't flinch. I don't fold. He's a career politician. I'm a fighter. Let's start out the gate with this, Rudy. I mean, are we just going through the motions now with the Hunt campaign, or, you know, will this still end up in a runoff? Like, will Hunt get enough votes that will still force this to be a runoff?
You know, I know the polls are not really boding well for Hunt, but you never count a guy out in a 3-person race, right? And, we're giggling a lot in this show because this is just pure politics. This is great stuff. This is what politics is supposed to be about. The shots, the takes, the debates. This is what makes politics wonderful. And we're in the age of political distractions, right? And the way the GOP primary Senate race is going on, it may be, and here's the concern, may be an Achilles heel for Republicans more than any other race on the November ballot. This three-headed head-butting fight between Cornyn, Paxton, Hunt, it's somewhat has sucked all the air and money out of a lot of the down-ballot races. Recovering from the special election loss in Fort Worth for Republicans, they're writing that off as a turnout problem. I think that's a problem. That's a misread. It's going to take a lot of money to get that seat back and also hold ground in South Texas. Stephen, I think they're going to have to empty the bank account, the Republicans, to recover. Where do you?
Yeah, I mean, they are spending a lot of money. I was asking, when I was at the Cornyn event last week, I was talking to some Republicans, some elected officials, and some not. And I was like, are you shocked that this amount of money is being spent just on the primary for one race? Mark, to segue to you, the response to me asking Senator Cornyn, I mean, he would be the longest serving senator in Texas history if he wins his 5th term. What would you say in response to people calling you a career politician? He said, with time comes more experience, and he believes that he's more effective now than all those years ago. What is your take on the whole career politician statement, and will that hurt him heading into, let's just say, May?
Well, that's certainly the attack that Hunt's using and Paxton's using, although Paxton is also a career politician, state house, state senate, 3 terms as attorney general. Hunt, that's one thing he has in his favor, so he's using it. I think at the end of the night, though, Hunt's going to be the 3rd man left out. He simply doesn't have enough support. He doesn't have enough money. And even in his home county of Harris, the Hobby School recently did a poll focused on Harris County to see where the Senate candidates were just within the county. Cornyn was in 1st, Paxton was in 2nd. Hunt was close, but he was in 3rd place. If you're in 3rd in your home county, that you should be winning, you're unlikely to do well statewide. But I think at the end of the day, one saving grace Republicans have is they have Greg Abbott, who will lead the charge in November, and he's got over $100 million in the bank and able to raise probably that amount twice-fold if he needs it. So overall, I think we're in a situation where Republicans will recover, but certainly if Paxton is their nominee in the fall, they're going to have a lot of trouble with a lot of the attacks that have been used this spring, with Democrats simply repeating what other Republicans say about the GOP nominee for Senate.
That's a really good point, Mark. And to that point, I would counter and say, in her home county, Jasmine Crockett is going to have to really run up that number because if you have a large Tallarico faction in your home county, that may not bode well when we start to see the returns on Tuesday night. Okay, when we come back, we got a couple of other races and topics we're going to chat about. We'll see you after this break. don't know about you guys, but I was the second voter at my polling location on Tuesday, the first day of early voting. And while we talk about politics all the time, sometimes I still forget that there's a lot of people on the ballot. Our ballot was 7 pages long, and I will be transparent. It was some names that I did not recognize. It was some propositions that I didn't even know were on there. I say that to say, I've been talking to some people, and they've been telling me this ballot is long. And unfortunately, as much voter education as I think we do, there's a lot more to do. Rudy?
You know, I'm having to rethink something that I thought was going to be a negative for Republicans that may not be an issue at all. School choice advocates just got another boost for that controversial program. A federal judge in Houston is not letting school districts in Houston, Katy, and Plano comply with SB 12. That's the new state law which prohibits DEI hiring in schools, as well as race and gender-based training programs. It also mandates parental permission for students to join clubs, prohibit clubs based on gender identity. You know, school choice advocates are just saying, keep it coming, along with those school walkouts. It is only proving their point. Stephen?
Mark, really quickly, what's on your mind?
Well, I think what we're seeing is this high turnout on the Democratic side, but before Democrats get too enthused about it, what we're primarily seeing are people who traditionally turn out to vote in November, but generally don't turn out to vote in the primary, but when they do vote in November, they vote Democratic. So there's higher participation in the primary. That doesn't necessarily translate into a similar surge in the fall, although this should be a very good year for Democrats.
Well said. All right, to see this episode or in our past ones, go to our station's YouTube channels and keep the conversation going by interacting with us on social.
You know, the Senate race may be the main event, but there are several other battlegrounds in Texas heating up. We'll take them up this week as the early voting winds down. We'll see you tomorrow.